Esto que escuchas es un cassette grabado.
Cassette grabado.
Cassette grabado.
What's my state of mind right now? Anticipation, mild frustration, impatience. This has been a long time coming, and it's kind of, the album's been delayed for a considerable amount of time. Our musical lives were kind of delayed, for a considerable amount of time. So we've kind of been sitting on this record for 2 years longer than we probably should have been. We have to kind of restart and go back into this kind of rock and roll machine. And now we're thinking about it because we've had enough time to have a break for it to become not automatic. So invariably, because I'm a catastrophizer and I have a tendency to project into the worst case scenario, kind of thing. I just think everything's going to go wrong. I get really worried, and because I don't have that kind of bravado that I had before, just from kind of doing it all the time without thinking. Now I think too much about everything. I overanalyze every aspect of what we're doing because I have the space and time to do it. And it's doing my head in.
The record's in the can, so to speak, and it's time to go again, the 8th time. Yeah, I'm starting to get excited. I feel that we had the time to make the record that we really wanted to make this time around, considering it's been 8 years plus since the last record. So coming out of this whole strange period was a bit of a shock to the system, but now it feels like we have some beautiful songs that we can take on the road. That's what I'm starting to feel now. So I'm in a good place.
For me, the greatest achievements, they shift. When we started, I had been to Goldsmiths College in New Cross, and so the nearest kind of important place to see gigs was Brixton Academy for me. And I saw Fugazi, I saw Polly Harvey, I saw Sonic Youth, I saw Pavement, I saw all these amazing bands in the 90s, which were so inspirational at Brixton Academy. So that was my dream. And we got there in 98. In 1998, we played Brixton for the first time. And then so you kind of have to find new dreams, new dizzying heights to scale. And I guess for me, it started to become about my insecurity, my own personal insecurity, being somewhat diminished by the support of people that I admired. People that I'd grown up listening to were kind of knocking on the door and saying, shall we do something together? Whether it's David Bowie or Michael Stipe actually recording songs with us, or sharing a stage with Robert Smith and Frank Black. These are ridiculous things to do, playing their songs. These are absurdly magnificent things to happen to a musician, to get that kind of support from such legendary figures that you grew up listening to, and to find an affinity with them. That little voice in the back of your head that just keeps telling you you're never good enough, is slightly quietened by the support of your heroes and people who definitely influenced you.
I think lockdown affected us all in multiple ways. I welcomed it on a lot of levels because it felt like in 25 years of being in Placebo, we had never, ever had a break. It had always been, okay, let's try to slot this into Placebo's schedule, slot life in, And for the first time, it felt like, well, I can throw away the calendar, the calendar with all this little sort of jail-like grids on it, commitments, my life being planned ahead, multiple months. So that was thrown out the window. So there was a certain freedom, which I welcomed. And I had a lot of catching up to do on myself and on people around me. I think it has to be that I can sit here and talk to you, and I can talk to you truthfully without feeling like I've got some rotting corpse in the closet, just kind of that I'm trying to push back in, or trying to hide from the audience. I think we've shown a lot of ourselves, and Brian as well lyrically, I think very open, and I think we've also been very honest about what we believe in. I think all the death threats that I've had personally from just standing up for what I believe in conjunction with the band, and also the fact that we have followed our truth in terms of everything that we've released. It feels like I'm still behind probably 99% of all of it. yeah, I think if it comes down to one word, I suppose it's some form of integrity, that we followed our truth.
Every time we come around to starting a new record, I kind of have a major existential crisis. And so this time, the methodology I used to pull myself out of kind of artistic panic was just to reverse the entire process. So I thought to myself, well, what's the last thing we do? And then the last thing we do is that we usually end up choosing a picture for the album cover. So let's start with the album cover and work backwards. And then the second thing is probably, the lyrics and song titles after the lyrics. So I'd been writing lists and lists of song titles, that would sort of pop into my mind, and I would go, oh, that's kind of good. So I had these enormous list of titles that I've been writing for about 7 or 8 years. And then we just kind of cherry pick a title that we'd like. And sort of that, in a way, that would kind of serve as an inspiration for the song. It's extremely unusual. I really enjoyed it because it just forced me to break with all of my treasured and comfortable methods. And so it increased the danger, I guess, for me, that kind of, anything could go wrong, but also anything could go right and could go anywhere. If you change the process completely, and I chose to do it backwards because that was the first thing that came to my mind. How does this record kind of reflect what's happening in the world today, I guess? Well, I think the insecurity, the paranoia, all the kind of the tragedy, the inequality, that we started to see everywhere, the pain, the desperation, it kind of influenced the record in terms of atmosphere. But I'd say that about 85% of the lyrics were written before COVID hit. Lyrically, it was important for me not to make a record about the plague. I think it would just have dated everything just phenomenally from the start. It's similar to what I've said to people who ask me sometimes. It's just about making records, and it's just, just whatever you do, don't try and be fashionable. Because by the time you finished your record, fashion will have changed and you'll be unfashionable. You'll have a longer career if you just stick to what you do and accept the fact that you're going to be unfashionable for most of it. That's how most of us have managed to achieve longevity, from Depeche Mode to The Cure to us. It's kind of sticking to a kind of a singular vision.
Depends on the day. Necessity is the mother of all invention, I believe is the saying, right? If push comes to shove, a human will fight to survive, will fight to adapt. If you look at what is any species of either animal or genus of plant, what are we doing here, right? No one can really answer that apart from, well, we're just here to survive, right? We're here to procreate. Why? I don't know. We just want to survive and multiply, because that's how we survive, to multiply more. So, that's kind of encoded in us. So, in terms of human race, that's what we're programmed to do, and we are very clever. We have sent, people to outer space, and we have managed to invent some amazing things, and all those inventions and scientists are there working at now as well. So I think the answers are there. It's just there's all so much noise and negative noise surrounding the whole culture that we live in, and then hanging out with the younger people, their kind of optimism rubs off, and I tend to find that there's more optimism than not, so I choose to be optimistic, even though that I might feel pessimistic.
Am I optimistic about the future of humanity and where we are today as a species? Forgive me for saying so, but because I don't want to depress a bunch of people, but I'm not particularly optimistic, no. But I suffer from depression, so it's very difficult to have that be a part of your life, to have a tendency towards depression, and then to not have climate depression, for example, to not be completely aghast at the treatment of refugees in this country, to not be completely aghast at the lies and the manipulation that we're subject to by the powers that be in this country. And it's very difficult, I think, to take a cold, hard look at what's going on and to empathize with it and to find optimism within that. But I ask myself, in as much as that every kind of 50 years, we have kind of doomsday cults. Every 50 years, people gather and decide that the end of the world is going to happen, and it never does. I wonder whether or not my lack of optimism has to do with the fact that I'm within it right now. There is no distance. There's no historical distance. We're living it. Maybe it feels more intense because we're living it right now. I think that we're extremely fortunate because after 27, 28 years, we still have fans and we still have an audience. And for me, that was one of the things that I got so insecure about during lockdown, because for the first time in my life, the possibility of there not being an audience there, the possibility of us not playing concerts again seemed real. And that was something that I always depended on, no matter how fucked up your life gets, you know, how messy everything is, or how many disasters, you know, happen in a row. There'll always be an audience for you to go and do a show. That was taken away during lockdown. And then all of a sudden, I started asking myself questions that I've never asked myself before in the career, like, do I have a future? For me, it was evident, you know, before lockdown that, of course, we'd always have a future. You know, look, you know, we're still around. So many bands that started at the same time as us, they aren't still around, you know, they quit or the audience went away. So we're in an extremely privileged position, I think. But I'm not about to pretend that just because we've achieved some kind of longevity that we are superior artistically. Michael Bublé's achieved longevity. So is Barry Manilow. So I never know if what I do is of artistic value because I question it continuously.
The prospect of touring was extremely daunting for me, and this is informed by the tour that I felt never ended, the 20th anniversary tour that just lasted for way too long, to the detriment of the band's health. So to go back out was, I just kind of put a big cross over it, a big black cross. But you know, it's in my DNA as well. And, you know, I met Brian when I was 19 and we've been gigging ever since, pretty much. And I think I love this band too much. And I think it would be unfair to stop short by just putting out an album. You know, I mean, if we've toured Siberia, you know, and if we've gone and played in 40-degree heat, you know, in Cambodia, and survived death threats in Morocco, then we can do this.
How do I feel about the live shows coming up? I desperately want to go out and do what I'm best at. But also because we've had such a break, I'm nervous about it. I don't think I would have been nervous if we hadn't have had this enforced 2-year break. But because we had this pause and we lost momentum, it's become less automatic. I didn't think about shows before. Now I think about every aspect of it. Agonize for months over my pedal board, for example. So I'm excited, but I think it's going to be a major culture shock, even though we've got 25 years of playing live behind us. Slipping into an old shoe that doesn't feel the same, or that you didn't expect it to feel like, but you'll get used to it again. Is there an aspect of the live situation that in particular that I'm looking forward to? Well, I guess it's your own tour is always a place where you have the most control over the environment and the visual aspect and the sound. It's where you can be obsessive about the details. And also there is a kind of a sense of family and community, and because everybody in the audience is there for you. You walk onto the stage, in a way, you've already won. But then if you do become insecure at any point, which is going to happen without question, that intimacy can turn into pressure because these are your most diehard supporters and what they need is your best. Sometimes you welcome the anonymity of a festival because you don't have control over most of what's going on. You're just walking onto stage and hoping for the best. And these people may or may not be interested in what you have to do. Depending on the psychological makeup of your day, you know, that kind of anonymity can be comforting in as much as the comfort of preaching to the choir can be. The closer people are in a life situation, the scarier it gets. The more self-conscious I become. I prefer having them at a certain distance. If you can see the whites of their eyes, then you start to get a bit scared.
It means more to me now, having had a step back from it. You know, the the love that we get from people who are into the band. Something that I appreciate more and more. Perhaps one element too is that we're so miserly when it comes to sharing about our lives, you know, and about not posting about everything about what we do, you know. I feel that we are more in control of the narrative now than we were, you know, for the majority of our career. And I think we need to feel that control in this world where we're being watched all the time and nothing is private and everything is out there. You know, the horrible photos, photos of me that I don't like, they're still out there, you know. So we want to deliver the best image, photo, you know, piece of artwork possible when we actually put something out there, you know. And I think that is what we feel comfortable with at the moment, you know. And if people feel frustrated, apologies, but we're still here, and we will be seeing you very soon.
Esto fue KCT Grabado.